And
First time
like
I've ever heard of it. The first time I ever heard it is when you were here.
right.
This meeting is
Everybody, how we doing?
being recorded.
How are you?
Hi, Rabbi.
Everybody ready? Second.
Sweetie Paula, it was good to see you briefly.
Hmm.
Huh? I barely
All
got
right.
to see them.
How are y'all doing? How's everybody? Preparations for the holiest of days, the day of Yom Kippur.
I can't hear you, Rabbi.
Can't hear me?
I can.
No, I can.
I can hear you.
But Sudi said she can't.
Judy, do you
Maybe
hear
she's
everybody
on-
else?
Sudi, can you hear us?
I don't think she hears. Maybe.
No.
Can you hear
Judy,
me?
maybe the volume's down on your computer. So write that to her.
Right. Every one
Anyways.
of us needs a computer helper as we're
Actually-
zooming into classes and
I can't hear you.
But we can hear you.
that doesn't help. She doesn't hear us.
She should go out
I
and
just
come back in.
I just
Texted her?
typed.
No, the volume's way up.
Uh-huh.
I would go out and go back in.
Oh my. I don't know what else to do.
It's too bad because we hear her.
Yeah.
I just wrote her.
Okay.
I
I will.
just wrote her that. Okay. Let's see. All right. So everybody, obviously, pretty big Jewish holiday coming down the pike. We're about to hit the day of Yom Kippur. Jerry, I see just basically by your background that you are back on the West Coast.
I am.
All
I
right.
am, but
all
that
right.
was fun. That was fun
was
being a
fun.
mile or two away from you during last week's class.
Yeah. Yes. And it was nice having you for Yantif.
Thank you. It was nice being there. I got a big talking to by my friend Ronit when I was there, and she said, "You're not coming here once a year. That's not enough. That's just not right."
Right.
And
I agree.
that's not
100%.
right. And she said you're going to ruin your relationships that you have here, and they're really good relationships, and you're making a mistake. Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. I don't think you're
Thank
going to ruin the relationships, but I definitely think that we like seeing you more. So
Thank you.
again, her sentiments are well received over here. Anyways, let's Sudi, can you hear now?
Poor thing.
All right, I guess she still doesn't
I
hear.
feel bad.
Jerry, I'm confused. Jerry, if your kids are in Las Vegas.
Right. So I'm going on
Look,
Sunday
look.
to Las Vegas. I'm going to Las Vegas and I'm going to celebrate Yom Kippur there.
Right, that I understood. What I'm asking is, in light of what the rabbi just said, and I agree.
Right. What am I doing here?
If you let me finish, let me
I
finish.
know.
If
But he
you're
kind of
on
also,
the
I know, but he also put in my head, like, you can't keep following the kids. Like, you can't, you know what I mean? You can't follow the kids everywhere they go. They're not married. They take a new job. They go here, they go there. Shane already did this to me twice. My daughter did it to me twice. She went to Israel since I've been here and lived there and then got stuck with COVID. Now she's in Vegas, but I don't know if it's going to, I don't know if this Vegas thing is going to be permanent.
No, so
It's in a random way.
this is not difficult.
But I mean, I have friends here. Like I've like developed I have a whole Chabad network here.
Either
Thank you, Rabbi.
wherever you'll
there-
be, Jerry, wherever you'll be
When I
loved.
said
Sudi, do you hear yet?
can't, it's so bad. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Gary.
Yes, I can hear,
Hi.
I can hear Jerry. I can
Okay,
hear you.
wonderful.
Marissa, hi.
It's worth a
Wonderful.
break.
All right, let's
I'm
get
gonna be
started.
like running around a little bit during this, sorry, because
No
somebody's
problem. As
coming
long
over
as
and I didn't
I get,
expect.
Carrie, if you run around, we also get credit for the exercise, right? Okay. All right. So let's jump in. So this obviously we have Yom Kippur coming up, already in the mindset of Yom Kippur, because for many people, all the traditions and inserts and the tweaks and changes that we have for the davening indicate that we're in a special time. From once Rosh Hashanah sets in all the way through to the end of Yom Kippur, the davening has some significant changes. First of all, we do not say Hakel HaKadosh, right, the holy God, but we say Hamelech HaKadosh, the holy King. Right, the theme is King because we're coordinating God as King. We also put in the Zachrenu L'Chaim and the Uva Sefer Chaim, Uchasov L'Chaim Tovim. Right, Hashem should remember us. He should inscribe us into the book of life. Right, all these elements. So we have the coronation, we have remember us, and then obviously we have the Avinu Malkeinu, which reminds us that we are very much in the 10 days of Teshuvah. Right, the 10 days of Teshuvah from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur, and this Shabbos is a very unique Shabbos. It is called Shabbos Shuva or Shabbos Teshuvah. Both are correct. Both are of a similar meaning, but have each their own reason. It's one of it's called Shabbos Teshuvah because we are in the 7 days. I mean, the 10 days of Teshuvah from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. It is called Shabbos Shuva because the name of the Haftorah is Shuva Yisrael. Return, O Israel. Those are which is still the same theme. It's just kind of coming at it from two different angles. Shabbos Shuva and Shabbos Teshuvah. Now, it is interesting because generally on Shabbos, one is not meant to focus on confession and their own shortcomings, right? The Tachanon is not said on Shabbos. When we don't do the Asham, the Baganu, the confession, because Shabbos kind of transcends that. And yet this Shabbos' whole theme is Teshuvah, which, by the way, makes a very important point that Teshuvah and confession are not the exact same thing. Obviously, an important tentpole of Teshuvah is confession, vidui, but it is not the entirety of Teshuvah, and that's actually a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today. Just by the way, so that you can be properly forewarned, it says in halacha that twice a year the rabbi is obligated to give a long speech. One is the Shabbos before
Is it
Pesach.
really? I always thought you
Yep.
were joking.
Nope. One is the Shabbos before Pesach, and that is Shabbat HaGadol. In fact, that is actually one of the reasons it's called Shabbat HaGadol, not just for the great miracle that occurred the Shabbos before the story of the Exodus, and we've talked about that in the past with the miracle of the Jews taking the lamb inside their house, and the Egyptians inquiring what the Jewish people were doing with their deity, and they saying they were going to slaughter your deity to our God. And that went over well, and not only that, but that that in a sense the Egyptians turned on their own pharaoh at that point, a great miracle. So that happened on that Shabbos. So we call Shabbos HaGadol the Shabbos of the great miracle. But it's also called Shabbos HaGadol because the rabbi is meant to give a big speech. So there you go. It's called Shabbos HaGadol because the rabbi is obligated to give a big speech, and that is because there's so much to talk about Pesach, so many of the laws and the rules. Pesach is probably the holiday with the most rules to it, and it's expected that the rabbi walks everybody through all the rules so everybody can properly observe Pesach. So that's another reason why it's called Shabbos HaGadol. But anybody know the second Shabbos that the rabbi is obligated to give a long speech?
I assume it's this one.
Ah, good. Jerry is Sherlock's assistant. Brilliant deduction. Yes, that is correct. it is this Shabbos. Why? Because a rabbi's obligation is not just to keep their congregation informed as to the law, but to keep the congregation inspired. And this is a Shabbos in which inspiration is absolutely necessary. This is a very crucial and important Shabbos. Shabbos between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, being Keseh la'asor, between the holiday of the hidden moon and the holiday of the 10th day, being Keseh la'asor, is a very important period in our yearly divine service and spiritual growth, etc. This Shabbos is key. And really, to a certain degree, is one could make an argument as big of a momentum builder as Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur itself. Why? Because Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are islands of inspiration onto themselves. Rosh Hashanah is a day like no other. Yom Kippur is a day like no other, which is what makes them special and unique, but it also makes them special and unique. And it is hard oftentimes to translate that same feeling and energy that we have on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur into the rest of our regular year. It's not going to be a Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I think all of us have those moments, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, where we're on an incredible high and we're incredibly energized, and then have a hard time. How do we translate that into a day that's not like Yom Kippur? It's not so acutely spiritual, or the atmosphere is not so conducive. How do I manage to have a day like Yom Kippur on a day that's not like Yom Kippur?
It kind of reminds me of the conversation about how we have to try to bring Shabbat into the rest of the week.
Right. And so we have a Shabbos in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And this Shabbos, in a sense, straddles what Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur speak to and gives us a transition point. It's still Shabbos and not the week, but that's a necessary stepping stone, as it were, because Shabbos does come up quite consistently, 52 times at least a year. Right. Well, according to in the Hebrew calendar, at least 45 times a year. You know, leap years or whatever it is, included, not included. But the point is that Shabbos rather than a weekday, because a weekday we still have to kind of get back to our daily schedules, and we're focused on our schedules and distractions. This Shabbos gives us a chance to be in a meditative space, in a holy space, in a more spiritual state, but one we're more familiar with. So we get to ponder what Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, what this period of the year means to us, but in a state and in a circumstance that is one that we can translate. We have experience translating this into our daily routine, or at least our weekly routine. Give me one moment. Us to take both the themes of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur individually, but really, to a certain degree, the overarching theme that is both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and also the days in between, and feel it in our typical weekly schedule. So Shabbos Shuva is a Shabbos like most Shabbos that we have, but a Shabbos in which we're living the themes of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So you have to ask yourself, what does Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, what does this theme of Shuva mean for me in my practical daily life? Because Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, like any holiday, is not allowed to be an island in time, where I do a certain thing for 24 hours to 48 hours, and then I just move on and go back to my regular routine. God forbid that any holiday and any theme or message of any holiday should have that general attitude. So what is Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? So many people on the most basic level say it is the time in which you make sure you've reconciled with God, because he holds your entire year hostage, right? God, there's a specter in which that's hanging over your entire year, and you need to make sure you're good with the guy who's holding that whole year hostage, right? And for many people, that's what Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is. And that's why it's so solemn, it's so scary, it's so serious. And it seems to be that the liturgy of the days encourage such such a thought process, right? On Rosh Hashanah, it's inscribed. On the day of Yom Kippur, it's sealed: who shall live, who shall die, who shall live out their allotted time, who shall not, who shall be harassed, who shall be tranquil. It seems to be that we're saying this point, that God is kind of saying, look, I got the ledger book open, and if you want a good year, you better make sure you're on my good side, right? So the multiple issues with that attitude. Number one, then Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are scary days. They're not days of awe, they're days of fear. And that's not what it says. We don't call them Yamim Pachadim, Pochadim, Mefachadim. They're called Yamim Noraim, days of awe, of majesty. It's a very different word. Number two, what you have then reduced the relationship to is basically a glorified ATM. You want a good year, you need to make sure that you want to try to withdraw a good year from God. You need to make sure that you're on his good side, right? And unfortunately, we all know what those kind of relationships feel like when you're on the receiving end of somebody who is trying to get on your good side, or try to I'm looking for a certain word and I'm just failing to find it. There's somebody who is just what?
Ingratiate?
Exactly the word I was looking for. Thank you very much, Paul. I was like stuck on the word aggrandize, and like that's not the correct word. Ingratiate. Thank you very much. It's exactly the word. That they're trying to ingratiate themselves with you purely because they want something from you. It's insulting, and oftentimes it's depressing, especially if it's somebody that you're trying to have a better relationship with. And if you get the sense that they're only interested in having a relationship with you because they're trying to get something from you, then that's what they have reduced the relationship to. And we want to make sure that we are definitely not giving God that impression of our efforts to make to be there Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur and to have a relationship with him. God, I'm here because I don't know what I really feel about you, but I definitely want to have a fat bank account this year. So here I am. And what that means, and the reason why it's painful to God or to anybody else, is because you're not only reducing the relationship, you're reducing me, right? You're reducing God. This is all that God is to you now. Yeah, is that glorified ATM? And so we have to rethink, what really are we trying to do? What is the process that we're going through? And again, if that was all that we were doing, first of all, it's something we shouldn't be doing in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and also we wouldn't name a Shabbos after it. In fact, again, we are careful that most Shabbases, we are not even thinking in that general direction, because there is no tachanun and there is no confession and whatever it is. Because on Shabbos, you're not allowed to talk business, even the business with God. You're not even allowed to talk business with God. God, I'm going to repent. You're going to give me a good year with that and all that. That's business. Don't talk business on Shabbos. Transcend business. So to a certain degree, this general approach of making sure you're good with God, so that you can get from him what you need or want, is something you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, and also importantly, it's not really something we're meant to be doing on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. So, what is it, in fact?
Rabbi, may I make
Yes.
a suggestion?
Go ahead.
For me,
Sure.
I learned on second day of Rosh Hashanah, I learned a new term. Bitul Hayesh. And I have a feeling that my answer to your question is that you can explain it to everybody.
It's tied to the idea of bitul hayes.
Ken,
Good.
Bitula
yes.
ma
Bitul hayesh, the nullification of
of what
one's
is.
sense of presence. No,
Wow.
of their own self.
Wow.
So let's back up a bit. The word that we are using that is the kind of the key word for these days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is teshuva. Teshuva does not mean repentance. What does it literally mean?
Return.
To return. What does return connote?
We put our soul back in the state where it's more pure and
I am not, the goal in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is not to make a new
Turn
me.
to God.
First step,
Maybe.
yes, also true. But first, let's start by saying, first to return to yourself, return to who you really are and you really have the potential to be. In other words, it starts, the idea of teshuva, and what is so empowering about the idea of teshuva of charata is you don't have to become a new person. You don't need to reinvent yourself. It's very hard to reinvent something, especially if I spent a lot of time being this particular thing. It's new vistas. I don't know what it is. Inventing is very hard. That's why very few people are inventors. So if I'm expected to invent a new me, what are the chances of my success in that regard? It's not intuitive. It's not anything I know. It's all new. There's greater chances for fail than there is for success. And I don't know if I'm up to it right now. But if the idea is to return, oh, that's natural. That's natural. This is where I've been. If it wouldn't be for the distractions, and if it wouldn't be for the detours, this is in fact where I would have been, because I have been here. This is key to understand that Yiddishkeit believes in the inherent holiness and goodness of every single person. You don't need to reinvent yourself in order to be a good person, even if you have gone astray. Even if right now you are not a good person. Even if right now you're not in a good place. You don't need to reinvent yourself. Because this, the way you are right now, is actually not really you. That's not how God made you. Rather, each and every one of us has a spark, holy spark within us. This is why, for the most part, every single person has that natural tendency towards good that we all count on, right? We all count on the basic human decency. Now, there are certain people that are obviously on the extreme edges of society. You have those that have completely flouted that element within them. We're not talking about those people, and even those people can be can discover it. But the very sense that we have a preponderance of evidence that the average human being is a good person, where does that come from? That comes from this principle that every single one of us, our soul is a piece of God, is a spark of God, which means that by definition, our most natural state is a state of goodness. And the effort is to disallow distraction and influence to have as much of an effect on me as it's had in the past. And I'm going to start being the person I know that I can be and I should be and I want to be and I was and now I will be. There's a certain reason that we all kind of love children. It could be annoying, right? And it could be loud, whatever it is. But there's a certain what we call innocence to a child, right? And a certain amount of obedience. If you don't, before the world has set in on a child, right? You see a lot more of that optimism and that obedience and that desire to please, etc. What does that tell you? That what's our more natural state? Our more natural
Good.
state is to be in that state of goodness, to do what's asked of us, to try to to try and please people, to be optimistic, to be smiley. Then things happen,
Life
life
happens.
happens, etc., etc. But to say it's not us, it's not you, it's like, pretty much every person. Fidel Castro was a cute little baby once upon a time. It was probably a sweet little child, right?
Oh, don't go there. Okay.
And obviously I picked an extreme example, but what am I trying to say with that? I'm trying to say a point that deep down within every single person, and sometimes it's not that deep down, with most of us it's not that deep down, is that pure desire to be good. So you don't have to invent anything. You don't have to
Just go
invent
back.
anything.
Go back to what you
You
are.
just have to revisit yourself. Return.
So what?
Return.
So what is the Bitul Yesh?
Oh, wait a minute. So in a moment.
He's
Okay.
getting there.
We'll get to the Bitul Hayesh in a moment.
I was always impatient from the time I was born.
Impatience is not necessarily a bad character trait. The idea that if we want if something good is coming, we want to make it happen all the sooner, could also be a very positive character trait. Perseverance is probably in within that. Either way, the point being that this Shabbos, this period, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur was a day that many of us were probably holier, purer, better than we usually are. Why? Because it was a day that we were more successful in schlepping ourselves out of the muck and the mire of our daily schedules, or the things that perhaps turn us away from who we potentially could be, who we naturally are. So Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I've managed to extricate myself from the rigmarole of life, and I was able to put myself into a state where I minimized the distractions, and I was able to be more tuned in to my soul. And I was not surprised to find that my soul enjoys being in a spiritual place. My soul enjoys being in a place of prayer and of inspiration and of self-betterment and refinement. And I enjoyed the prayers. I enjoyed the rabbi's speech, even though it was a little too long, but I found it to be uplifting, and it left me thinking and pondering. All this makes a point that you minus the world equals a pretty decent person. So what do you really need to reinvent yourself? No, you just need to return from where sometimes we get lost on our detour and we get confused, and we get turned around in the labyrinth of the world around us. And Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur afford us the opportunity that's really available to us every single day, but it is a kind of a more hands-on, a more turbo opportunity to actually pull ourselves out of the rat race and to get to know ourselves a little bit better. Now, the issue is you can't remain in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. You can't remain in a Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. You need to be able to do that while you are in the world. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur will end. You will have discovered yourself. The question is, can you only be yourself in this state? Right? Many people go to these retreats. Right? You go on to these retreats and you do some deep introspection and analysis, whatever it is, and you find and you discover whatever it is. But then you find out or discover that I could only do this or I could only be this on the retreat, right? Like couples that are oftentimes having issues or whatever. So they go on a retreat. And it was great and it was wonderful and it was really special. And then they get back home and it's as if they never went on the retreat. And they turn out, oh, apparently we can only be in this kind of state when we're in that kind of state. And the effort has to be how can this feeling that I have on Rosh Hashanah, this awareness, this self-awareness that I have, last beyond Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and even when I am in my regular life. So, first thing is you have a Shabbos Shuva. You have a Shabbos Shuva. You have a Shabbos that's not Rosh Hashanah and it's not Yom Kippur, but it carries the theme of Teshuvah. So this is a Shabbos. So Shabbos, like any other Shabbos. Again, it still affords you a little bit of the pullback from the daily grind of things. But it's still and it's still a Shabbos, so you can contemplate. But it's not a Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and the davening is not that. It's not going to be that much different than a regular Shabbos. So it's, for all intents and purposes, it's a regular Shabbos. Yet it's still there, right between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So what do I do? What do you do? This Shabbos, you make a decision that this Shabbos will not be like the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. This is going to be a Shabbos in which I will make a concerted effort. I will make a concerted effort not to observe Shabbos, not to make Shabbos holy, but to have Shabbos make me holy. Don't attend Shabbos, have Shabbos attend you. And what this is, in a very practical sense, is what are you going to do this Shabbos? What are you going to do this Shabbos that talks more to your spiritual side? What are you going to do? You're going to have your gefilte fish. You're going to have your kugel. You're going to go to shul Friday night. You're going to go to shul Shabbos day, whatever it is. What added aspect to get to know yourself better? And I would say probably it's something in the direction of doing some learning. Some learning. Not reading a book, learning. Torah study. And so maybe I already do Torah study. No, so good. So add. This year should not be a copy of the year before. This Shabbos should look different than the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. A Shabbos in which you returned more to who you really are, where you invested more in yourself. And by investing, a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to invest in myself. And what do they mean by that? I'm going to eat my greens and I'm going to diet and exercise right? I'm going to, go do yoga. That's wonderful. All good things. But you're not investing in yourself, you're investing in your body. You are not your body. When was the last time you invested in yourself? When was the last time you returned to yourself? Again, outside the acute days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, outside these retreats from reality, when was the last time that part of reality you returned to yourself? And to enhance this idea, and this is what Paula introduced, you know what yourself really wants? It's to be good, right? What does good mean? Well, let me rephrase this question. We throw this word around a lot. But my question to you is, if you had to define it, how would you define it? What does the word holy mean?
Like God.
Wow. In what sense?
Um,
God is also strong and powerful and mighty and king. What is, and that's to a certain degree exactly my question. When we define God as mighty, okay, we have a sense of what mighty is, right? The parameters of mightiness. We know what the label king means. We know what the label kind means. But what does holy mean? Holy,
that
holy, holy,
connection
holy,
between
holy,
the
holy.
eternal and ourselves. It's that connection between the eternal and ourselves is what I call holiness when it works.
But that again, so you're identifying the part of you that is holy. But what is holiness?
Holiness. What is holiness?
What is it about God's nature that makes him holy? What, and that we then have to emulate? And it's a hard word. It's a hard word.
We all
Because
feel
it's
like we feel like we know what it means, but
it's like one of those things where I can't tell you, but I know it when I see it. Right? Right? Here's the interesting thing. What's the Hebrew word for holy?
Kadosh.
Kadosh. What does the word kadosh literally mean?
Separate.
Oh, good, Paul. Separate, but not really, because the word nifrad also means separate.
mm,
So it has a unique connotation, not just separate.
mm.
And the general principle is that it means two things, two aspects to it. In terms of, yes, it does mean separate, but it means separate with two aspects, two further definition. It means transcendent, separate upwards, not separate downwards. Are separate lateral wise. It is not separated laterally. That would be nifrad, right? And it's not separate downward. It's very specifically separated upward, i.e., transcendent. Right?
Absolutely.
But beyond that, this gets to your point. The word kadosh also means transcendent for a reason, for a purpose, towards something. Because the other word that gets the word kadosh is where it is separated for a higher purpose, i.e., consecrated. When you take something for the temple, you're makdish it. It becomes hekdesh. What kadosh means about God is that the aspect what makes God, what holiness is transcending all the Narishkeit. That God is above all the things that stain and pull down, and God is transcendent and remains above that. And whatever is high is him, and whatever is low is not. Not that it's not him, but it doesn't define him. And in this we must emulate God. To be kadosh, to be holy, is to transcend the narishkeit. That's what it means to be holy. Viromam tanu mikol halshonot, right? You have elevated us. When you chose us, God, you elevated us. And things that are acceptable, just as we understand that a human being, right? When a human being sticks their nose into a trough and just, what do you say? You're eating like an animal. Okay, fine. Animals are very adept at eating. What's the problem there? You're not allowed to be an animal. You have to transcend an animal. You're a human being. It's unacceptable for you to be an animal. To be kadosh means it's also unacceptable for you to be a human. You're greater than that. You're greater than being a human. What's good enough for everybody else out there in the world is not good enough for you. You have to transcend it. And you have to do that with a vested interest and focus. Give me one moment. I apologize, everybody. That is Mendel. He is officially on his way. He just got picked up by the Uber. He is on his way to the airport, coming back home, flying by himself for the first time.
Yay!
By himself?
Yeah.
He took an Uber by himself?
He's taking an Uber and then he's taking a flight by himself. Yeah,
Wow.
these boys have
He's a
to,
man. He's a man.
yeah, that's exactly it. They're growing up.
You send a boy
Wow.
away and you get back a man.
Yes. Yep, very much, very much. All right, so anyway, back to what we're saying, that coming back to yourself means to transcend. Means to transcend. Not just on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Not just on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And so we spend this Shabbos, which is a great bridge between a holiday existence and a weekday existence, is Shabbos. It's something that comes up every week. And it's a time that we can get into the right frame of mind with the goal that eventually it's not just Shabbos, but every day we live a transcendent life. Every day it's noticeable upon us that this is not a regular person. This is a holy person. This is a transcendent person. This is a person that understands that they have been consecrated. And that comes with the Bittul Hayesh, Paula. Because it's not good enough to be transcendent. It's not good enough in the sense that freedom from, it's got to be freedom to, as we say often about the holiday of Pesach, right? That Hashem didn't just take them out because the highest ideal is freedom. No, the highest ideal is not freedom. The highest ideal is actually service. But you need to be free to serve God. If you're too busy serving something else, you're not free to serve God. So Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, you make the concerted effort to be kadosh, to be holy, to transcend, but transcend for purpose. Transcend, be separated for purpose, be separated to something, i.e., be consecrated. Be consecrated. And that means Bittul Hayesh, where you remember and understand that your purpose of existence is not to serve yourself. The world and God and everything around you, including yourself, is not there to serve you. Rather, you're here to serve. You're here to serve. You're showing up on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, not because you want a good year. You're showing up on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur because you want the year that allows you to serve. God, invest in me. And in fact, you say, wait a minute, that sounds way too selfless. It's way too altruistic. That's not me. That's not me. I can promise God that I'll make a good, to a certain degree, I'll give him a decent percentage of my time and effort, right? If he'll give me good, I'll do some good things. It'll be a good, good mix, a good balance. I promise you that the more time you devote to doing the kind of things that God wants, the more you're going to actually feel satisfied and the more serene and more fulfilled and wholesome, etc. Because you were created la'avdo l'shamra. You were created holy. Holy does not just mean transcendent, where you're kind of above the narishkeit and above the fray, but you are consecrated. You are consecrated. You will feel the most you when you are doing something with purpose. That's when you will feel yourself at the most you. Doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean at times it's not easier just to sit and veg on the couch. And God allots for that as well. God is not expecting you to be an angel. But if you want to know what's going to really make this year a sweet year, it's a year when you are giving rather than receiving. It's a year where you are doing, where you are contributing your talents, your passions, your the hours of your day, etc., and you are doing something transcendental, something above yourself, and you're thinking beyond yourself. That is, in fact, what makes you the unique creation. The ability to think beyond yourself is something that a rock can't do because it's not even alive. Vegetation can't do because they can't think, period. And an animal can't do because an animal cannot think beyond itself. Only a human being has the ability to think beyond themselves, to contemplate a God and a person as a higher ideals and higher purposes. And you think God put that into you by accident? That's you. That's actually what you are. Tashuv. Return to who you are. Return to uniquely who you are. You're not going to find life satisfying as a sophisticated animal. Because that's not who you are. Spend a Shabbos returning to yourself. And then translate that into spending a year returning to yourself, returning to who you truly are. And who are you? The Shuva Yisrael ad Hashem Elokecha. You are consecrated unto God. God made you his special people. Right? Atav Atanu. Yisrael. And that's where you're going to find your meaning. And that's where you're going to find your satisfaction. It's not going to be in the big house or the ballet classes you give your daughter. It's going to be in your Yiddishkeit. Now, again, doesn't mean you can't do the ballet classes. It doesn't mean you can't live in the big house. But you have to understand that that's not the definition. That's not going to be the definition of who you are. You're not going to find that serenity and satisfaction in that. In the ballet classes, the fact that your child is learning skills and discipline and refining herself, et cetera, yes, you will definitely find pleasure and satisfaction in that regard because that is refining them. And that's part of it. But it's not the ballet. It's not the slipper and the tutu. It's the fact that when Hashem made you a refined, transcendental being that could drive the world's purpose forward, that's where you're going to find, and in the pursuit of that is where you're going to find your satisfaction. And so this Shabbos, and over the course of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, is a time to really say, I want to return to myself, to limit the distractions of everything around me, and get to know me. And what will truly make me happy, what will truly make me feel satisfied. And knowing that is where true what's called it exists. In a sense, the entire everything in Yiddishkeit comes down to aseh shalom, right? True peace and serenity, peace for yourself, peace for the world, is where everything is in its proper place and doing its proper thing. So if we can help with that, and start with that by starting with ourselves, finding that peace and serenity within ourselves, because I'm waking up and I'm doing something that defines me, that is in line with me, uniquely me. I'm not an animal. I'm not just a human. And I've returned to that. Then your year's off to a great start. All right, everybody?
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
Can you, if you can't do this quickly, then we'll save it for another time. How this relates to Hitbodedut?
Hitbonenut?
Yeah.
Or Hitboninut or Hitbodidut?
Dedut, I think.
Oh yeah, that's exactly. What is Hitbodedut? Hitbodedut means to spend some time alone in contemplation, whatever it is. This is exactly the point. The problem why these ideas that sound so intuitive as we speak them are so difficult is because the world makes a tremendous amount of noise.
Right.
And tries to demand a tremendous amount of your attention.
Right.
So how do you get to, in a sense, hear your own voice? You got to quiet down the rest of the world. You can't be, in a sense, contemplating this in the middle of a marketplace.
Right.
When everybody's yelling and screaming and somebody's slapping on you and saying this, you have bills to pay, you need to give yourself a space, which is what Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur really do. And what Shabbos does over the week, it gives you a certain amount of hitbodedut, right? You've created a certain space. And in this space, in this quieter space, you can listen to your inner voice.
Oh, good.
But you can't stay in that space.
Right.
Because God didn't create holiness in a vacuum. And you're not allowed to remain in the vacuum. You now need to go and plug yourself in. You need to have that hitbodedut so you can listen to your voice. It's like that thing, like shh, and you record. Then you hear that little voice. Now the noise can return and I'll still hear the voice, right? Now that I'm tuned in, right? Now I can still hear the voice.
Wow.
Hitbodedut is to quiet everything down so you can hear the voice. And then you can return to the cacophony and the voice will still be there.
Wow. Wow.
All right, everybody?
Thank you.
Okay. Rabbi,
See you, Seth.
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, Sudi.
Could you please trim or have somebody trim the shrubs on the sidewalk going out to the handicap parking place? Alan
Yes.
couldn't walk on that sidewalk and he needs to get in. That'll be great. Thank
No problem.
you.
Absolutely. We'll make sure to take care of them.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. All the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you for a wonderful.
And I got so many. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Yeah, you were saying something, Sudi?
Wonderful. Yes, thank you.
All right. All the best, everybody. Shabbat shalom.
I got